Wow, are you on your yacht?
There's your background.
I sold my big boat.
Yeah.
See, this proves Danny Macklin leaves the lights on.
Yeah.
Wow, you on your yacht?
There's your background.
I sold my big boat.
Yeah.
See, this proves Danny Macklin leaves the lights on.
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay. So, thank you to Ken, Danny, and Nigel that have joined us this evening for another one of our Q&As. How are you all doing?
I'm doing well.
Doing
And looking forward to this discussion.
Good stuff. Ken?
Doing well. Thanks, Luke.
Good, all good. Good stuff. Well, we had a load of questions in through email and social media, so as ever, we'll jump into them. If you have sent questions in and they're not answered, there's a chance that it's because they're probably answered in another way in a different question. So so yeah, pay attention and it might be covered in a different way. So another thing to say as well is if you're watching on YouTube, you can comment in the box on the right hand side, leave questions as we go along, and I'll make sure to pop back into there and get around to as many of them as we can. So to get us started, we've had a question from Paul Lambdin, and he has asked, how are Leyton Orient going to recuperate the money that they have lost due to COVID-19? Big hit.
Oh, that's a good question. So
We're not. We're not.
Okay.
It's not possible.
I think the first thing I would say is we play football to win. Part of the answer is we've got to do well in this coming season. I believe we will. I feel actually pretty confident about the season. But COVID's been an interesting time for all businesses. And I've just come off another call with another business where they've been looking to the future and the lessons that can be applied. And just about every business is changing. No business, I think, has done as much to anticipate the future than our business. I want to call out Danny Macklin in particular, because Danny's looked at every part of the operation, said, how can we do it better? How can we apply it to how our fans and our customers, because they are customers as well, will be post-COVID. So that led to the idea of the pitch-side dining before we start. That's led to an awful lot of work on streaming. That's led to how we can use the stadium better. So as Kent's right, we probably won't recover the cost.
Yeah.
And that effectively comes out of our pockets. But what we're determined to do is to make the gap as small as possible. Mr. Teague.
Well, two parts to the question. Hello, Paul, by the way. First of all, can you make it up? No, you can't. Money that you don't generate during a certain time period, you can't go get that money. It's gone. It never showed up. It'll never show up. It just doesn't work. That's how money works. When it doesn't flow in, it doesn't flow in. Now, in the future, can we generate more money? All of our estimates say that we can't. Without fans in the stands, without people coming into the ground and buying, shirts and all the stuff that goes on in and around a stadium and a match and all that, we won't be able to make up the money. We won't generate as much revenue this next year as we did last year. Does that mean that, it's over and it's not going to work? No, that's not what it means. What it means is we have to do, like Nigel said, and like Danny's been doing, and Martin has been doing, we have to look at the business slightly differently. We have to adjust how we spend, and we have to think about how we can generate revenue maybe in ways that we haven't done it. It's just the way it really is.
Yeah. And to bring you in here, Danny, obviously a big part of the business is more kind of non-match day area. I've got a couple of questions about. Can you enlighten us as to where that stands at the moment?
Yeah, very timely question. So we have officially reopened the doors in the last few days and announced that today. Obviously, we had the pitch side restaurant, which we're emulating and hoping to make it even better for 2 dates at the end of July, early August, selling very well. Probably had a ticker at the bottom of our book. And all joking apart, non-match day has always been an essential part of the business since the takeover in June 2017. It's now even more important. So we really want to stress to our fans, to local residents, local businesses, someone who's thinking about having a wedding. It might be in 6 weeks' time, it might be in 6 months, it might be in a year's time, it might be a meeting, it might be a conference. We're there. We're able to provide, cost-effective pitch side or pitch view facilities, whether it's 2 people or 100 odd. And the Brow Group Stadium in E10 is the place to book, and we're really urging everyone to spread the word. And we are making it as COVID safe as we possibly can. We've spent a huge amount of time understanding all the regulations, obviously, that are changing all the time to make the place as safe as we possibly can. And someone booking or coming as a guest can do so in confidence with our no quibble refund policy that we've now got in place.
Cheers, Danny. So from non-match day back to the kind of normal match day, well, in a way normal anyway. And Elliot's asked, how many players will you be looking or hoping to sign this window?
Well, we've already signed 2, if you think about it, because we re-signed Joby McAnuff and we then signed Us Cisse. I should say that was in competition with potentially other clubs. We thought we weren't going to get him at one stage, but we worked very hard at it. And I don't do this very often. I actually spoke to him myself. And I knew in his heart of heart, he really wanted to come to Leyton Orient. And we managed to get him over the line. So we feel really good about it. Just going back to Joby, I've said this many times. We talk about Justin's passing. But last year we had our captain for whatever it was, a third of a game. And he played amazingly well in that 1/3 of a game. Kent will tell me in a minute that he was there to see it live. I was watching it on streaming, but we really missed Joby. So he's like a brand signing. And Martin did an interview, I think, with you, Luke, this morning, when he was talking about Rules Satorio. But we basically feel we need another striker and a centre half. Obviously, Marvin's gone off to Blackpool. Good luck to him. He did some great work for us in the couple of years he was with us. And we tried hard to re-sign Marvin, but he didn't take our offers. And it's a free world. I mean, he's at the end of his contract, so good luck to him. But we're out looking for 2 more players. But I think this is a good point to stress why I feel confident. I think we have a very settled squad. Many other clubs are going to be doing what Martin Ling did in our first year, is trying to pull the squad together at the very last minute. It is tough. I mean, I remember how we threw everyone together. We went out, we started kind of okay in the National League, and then we went to Bromley and got 6 goals in the back of our net. So that wasn't a good feeling, but it takes time to bed in a squad. And as far as I'm concerned, we're in a great situation, a lot of consistency. I think we know the way we're going to play. We know the gaps, which I've just outlined. So I feel very good going into the season. And we started training today. I think we'll talk about that later. I won't steal it all from Kent, but I probably have.
Kent, anything? No.
Every club goes through this exact same thing every year. And more often than not, we've done it well. We've done it well during the summer transfer window, which has been extended this summer. And we do it well during the winter transfer window. We make our club better every time we go out and every time we enter the transfer window. We've done that consistently the last 6 times that we've done it. So I think that trend will continue. And I think people will pleased with, that they'll be pleased with the players and how much the players really fight for and love wearing the badge.
Thanks, Kent. So moving on, a question from Ken Mantell, who's asked, he would like to know what interim ideas they have for a partial crowd rather than an empty stadium once the new season starts. So I imagine this will mean more kind of around the logistics of it and how it may work. So if we come to you on this one to begin with, Danny.
Yeah, we've got here the guide that's been issued by government departments and given to us by the EFL, etc. So we are now hoping that we will start the season in around early September. Exact dates to be confirmed because we're yet to vote from it from all of the clubs, but we think that will happen in the coming days / week or so. And then we expect crowds to come back as per Boris Johnson's statement on Friday. We expect crowds to be allowed back in early October. So that will mean that we have a few games behind closed doors, and I'm sure there'll be questions that will allude to streaming, which we can then answer that then. But when we are able to let fans back in safely, we will be as prepared as anyone. We want to be at the benchmark of making sure that fans who want to come to the Barrier Group Stadium do so with that confidence in the same way they do for a non-match day. And we'll be working tirelessly behind the scenes over the coming days and weeks to ascertain the crowd that we can safely get in within the guidelines. And the considerations we have to have for that is the space within the concourses, accessing into the stadium, access to the toilets, getting out of the stadium, going into the shop, etc., etc. So there's an awful lot that we need to understand and to start planning. But the message that we'll be saying to fans is that when we are able to communicate what that capacity will be, along with government advice of when that can be, we'll make sure that fans are completely abreast of what those changes will need to be. And we will need fans to be flexible. It may mean that they can't sit in the exact seat that they've always sat in, because we're going to need to make maximum use within each stand of the seats whilst fitting within those very strict and important guidelines.
Yeah, I think this is a really difficult scenario. And before lunch, so about 3 hours ago, I was talking to the Boston Red Sox, and they've applied to play baseball in front of crowds in Massachusetts. The governor has to approve it, but for a 35,000 stadium, they're anticipating 7,000. And to add to Danny's list, in American sports, they tend to get up a lot more than they do in football in England. And he made the point that one of the biggest issues is people who are in the middle of a row, how they get out past other people. And that's a difficult one to put into place. So it isn't just the seating, it's all the things that Danny mentioned, like bathrooms and entrances, but it's also where you sit in the row. So a lot of work, and the government have been quite wise by doing some test crowds, I think in the month of August. And I know Matt Porter's working with them on darts, for example, but this is going to be a logistical nightmare. And I would ask, as Danny did, everyone to be flexible.
Yeah. Something you mentioned there, Danny, was streaming, which will obviously play a big part of the near future and indeed beyond that. But Stephen Smith sent a few questions in around it. So I'll read what he has said. His first question was, do the board feel that streams are likely to be available for those who consider themselves as vulnerable for a while yet?
Yes, we believe that streaming will be available, and we're campaigning this with the EFL along with many other clubs. Will be available to season card holders for certainly all home games, regardless of what kickoff time it is, and potentially, and this is what we're very much campaigning for, is that for the first time would be available to away games to season card holders. So we very much want to see that as added value to season card holders. Season card holders have been phenomenal in their support down the years, but never more relevant in the last few months. And that's a great way for us and the game to thank season card holders up and down the country.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth saying that we're looking at an investment in streaming to improve the quality, to improve the pre-game, halftime, and post-game. I keep seeing numbers flying around, but we feel that we have to keep upgrading the experience of streaming. And as you know, Danny's working, Luke's working on it, and David Travis is working on it as well, which is his full-time job. So we got the expertise there.
Yeah. A follow-up question to that, which again, I think quite an interesting one, is there a feeling that this might spell the permanent end of the 3 p.m. blackout?
I think it's worth explaining what that 3 p.m. blackout. So at the moment, I think most people will be aware of this, that games that take place, I think it's between 2:15 and 5 o'clock on a Saturday, are not able to be shown as a streaming service within the UK. Obviously, for a while now, we've been streaming games overseas successfully. But I think that blackout will be removed certainly for the duration of the 2020-21 season. Otherwise, we'll be kicking off every single game at a different time. 3 p.m. Saturdays are special. We want to continue that. And I think there is a chance that that could go into future years. There are some clubs that think that will affect attendance. There are some clubs that don't. But we're seeing this as a way, fans that live, far enough from the ground, that I don't think it will affect attendance. And I think overall, it's something that should be explored, and this season will allow us to research what that impact, if anything, is.
Sure. On to the final part of Stephen's question, is whether he thinks that the blackout would be a good thing or would it have a negative impact on the lower leagues?
Nigel or Kent, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Well, it's interesting. I think we've all grown up believing that football should be 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. It's a bit like in America, the NFL takes place at 1 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, right? I guess if you're in Texas, it's 12 o'clock. But
noon and 3, yes, sir.
Yeah. So we're all kind of traditional, but I think one of the things that we've seen recently is all the Premier League games and the Championship games with times all over the place. And I think for people who love watching the game, it does give them more variety. So the question is, will it affect the lower leagues? I personally don't think it will, because I think people will still want to go out and see a live game. And it may actually encourage people to go because they will be aware of more teams. I mean, if I was in the UK, I think there's games that I might go and see right now. Charlton have got one game to go. Macaulay Bonds scored 11 goals this season. Might be tempted to go and see that. So I think the more that the game is put out there, the more it encourages people to go. So difficult question to answer, because we've really got no research or no precedent that we can use. But I actually think it will be okay. It will not take people away from watching lower league football, in my view. I may well be wrong. Kent, what do you think?
I think it'll be good for the game. And the reason is that I believe that those who really want to be in stadium will be in stadium and will continue to come to the stadium. It gives those who maybe on that particular day wanted to go to the stadium but for whatever reason, maybe they've got to watch their children that afternoon a little bit, or, maybe they can't make it in. Maybe family comes over, so they watch the game together. The other thing is that I believe that streaming is a much more viable option for the younger group. So kids 13 to 17 to 19 years old can support their local team much better via streaming. And because they're so, good with the technology, they're used to watching stuff on their phone. So they might be willing to pay for that to watch it on their phone. And, they can't make it to the match. They either can't get a ride, or they can't get there, or their parents don't want them to go because it's not safe, or for whatever reason. So I think that the exposure of the game throughout the United Kingdom via streaming is a good thing. I think it's a really good thing. And I don't think it will lower attendance levels. I think it will increase attendance levels when you add the number of people in the stadium plus the number that are watching it via streaming.
So you raised an interesting point, Danny. If you take season ticket holders, isn't the average about only 75% turn up for each game?
As an average, yeah.
So that proves Kent's point that there are reasons why people can't go. Like in August, well, we're not going to be playing in August, but typically in August, people are on holiday. So they can't watch the game. At Christmas, they get dragged to go shopping, or the weather's too bad, or they're sick, or they have to go and see some friends for the weekend. These are all the excuses I'm sure fans have had. Now they can decide to watch it. So I think it will bring a much more consistent viewing pattern.
Thanks, Nigel. Moving on, and it's one from Ben Boatman, who's asked, what's the latest regarding pre-season training and matches?
Okay, I'll start and then I'll pass it over to Kent. So we believe we are the first League Two team to return, and we use very scientific sources like Luke to do Google searches today and look at other clubs. But we believe that we're the only club in League Two who went back this week. Most teams go back next week. And according to Martin Ling, but our players did a very good hour and a half workout. Everyone looked sharp. Everyone came back at their target weight, and apparently everyone was highly engaged. And it doesn't surprise me because we've worked really hard at trying to keep the players engaged during the shutdown. We've had a weekly meeting of all employees. So all employees, just to be clear, it's people like Luke, it's people like Lindsay, it's people in the office, it's coaches, it's players, it's people who work in the academy. They all come to this weekly meeting. So it doesn't surprise me that everyone's taking it seriously and they're coming back enthusiastic, ready for the season, and the training has started really well.
Well, I'm sure Nigel's had the same thing. I've got one of these little machines, and I've got players begging me to put them back to work, to put them back in training. They are begging us, please, can I not be at home so much? Can I not be indoors so much? Joby McAnuff can't wait. He was so excited to be back on the pitch today. And I'm sure Ross is out of his mind. I get texts from Ross all the time about, I can't wait for football. I can't wait to get back. We know our fans are excited. We know our players are excited. We know our coaches are excited. We're excited. We're very excited to put them back to work so they maximize everything they can gain out of as long a preseason as we possibly can afford. And we believe that hopefully that will make a difference. Justin had a belief that if he worked the players really hard for a couple of weeks in Portugal, it would make a difference. And it did. And so, you know, we're glad they're back at work. We want everybody to be back at work because these players are built to play football, and that's what we want them to do.
I think it's worth saying, Luke, that training will be a bit different. Now, you went there today, so you've probably seen it more than me, but the players have to turn up in their kit. We've not got all the food we normally have at the training ground. And I'm sure there's other restrictions that I'm unaware of. So training isn't quite the same because of all the protocols that Danny referred to.
Yeah, I think like you said, they're also desperate to be back. That those things are so minor that it was it was all very readily received today. Yeah, they're all in very good spirits.
I don't know if y'all know this, but when Nigel Travis goes on vacation and his wife won't let him be a part of Zoom calls or won't let him be a part of conference calls or won't let him do work, he goes crazy. Right, Nigel?
Oh, yeah, but that never happened.
And so do I. But nobody's worse at it than Mr. Macklin.
He'll say.
Hey, by the way, Danny, I think we're just telling you you've had all your vacation for the year.
That's done, yeah.
Just coming on to the second part of that question about a kind of pre-season schedule in terms of matches. It's a bit of a difficult one in the moment because so much is in the air, but what can you can you shed any light on the situation?
Yeah, well, okay, so this is what I know. I think we have to decide, are we going to play any teams that aren't being tested? So we know league teams are going to be tested, and all our players, just to make it clear, were tested on Saturday and all came back negative, which this is the only time a negative is a good thing, right? So they came back okay. So I think we're going to try and play league teams because we've traditionally played non-league teams who are, by definition, aren't being tested. So that's issue number one. I think Martin is working with clubs to decide who they play. I know a couple of Premier League teams under 23 teams have already asked to play because obviously they got to get themselves fit as well. So I think we're going to end up with a high quality schedule, but it's kind of being made up as it goes, which sounds a bit ad hoc, but we're in an ad hoc situation. So I think we'll have a good schedule, and I think Martin and Ross will work it out really well. And it may be a higher level group of teams than we played the last 2 or 3 years, because we probably won't be playing as many, or if any, non-league teams.
For a very good reason. European trips, preseason tours to the United States have been canceled this year. And what that means is that there are a lot of teams and a lot of players who still need to be put through their paces, and they're all going to be located in Europe. And we are finding out that there are options that possibly we didn't have in the past. And we're going to take advantage of those options and those relationships that we have, if at all possible. So we expect preseason to be full of very good matches that will stretch not only our players, but also stretch the opponents. So we're looking forward to that.
Great stuff. Moving on to a question from Gerard Shaw, and he has asked, in light of the Royal Satiri situation, what are the running costs of the academy? Does it make a profit, break even, or loss? And if young players don't stay more than 10 games, what are your views on academy being viable versus buying young pros instead? For example, Ekpateta and Macaulay Bonne.
Okay. What a complicated question. So, Ken, I feel bad that I always go first. I mean, you want to go first on this one?
Sure. Academy loses money every year. There you go. Every year. It hadn't made money any years. The only way that the academy makes money is if you attribute sales of players as turnover toward the academy. And over a 10-year period, which Martin Ling has done all of the studies for us in conjunction with Danny, the academy basically breaks even over a 10-year period. Some years you get a very large amount for one player or a few, and then at that point the academy, breaks even. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Absolutely, it's worth it. Absolutely, it's worth the investment. And it's done in conjunction with the Premier League. So there are lots of rules around how it works and EPPP, blah, 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 all that stuff. The fact of the matter is it loses money every year. Is it viable? Well, if you do it based on a financial basis, no, it's not. But is it viable for all of the benefits that we obtain as Leyton Orient? Absolutely, it's viable. And it's something that we're very focused on. So, Lewis runs the academy in a very, very tight ship type manner, and we get tons of benefits from it. And you can't always measure value just in money. Nigel?
Yeah, what I'd say to that is, I think this is an area where we want to ask our fans to focus on this year. So when I first started supporting Leyton Orient, which just to remind you was in '59, I was only 9. So when I could go on my own, I used to go and see the reserve games, and I used to go and see, when I can, the youth team games, which was in the Southeast Counties League. I think we'd like to believe that in the future we will have fans going to see the academy games at Woodford. Woodford is where they play. We talked to Lewis as recently as last Thursday about this, because we'd like people to know more about the schedule. And the schedule is something that is a bit loose, let's say. That's not Lewis's problem. And the net result is that we want people to go and see the academy, see the young players coming through. We also want to play more games at the stadium, because we think you should see tomorrow's talent today. And I think that's been a big miss in the past.
Thank you, Nigel.
Hey, Luke, I'm going to disappear for 1 minute to answer an urgent message. I'll be back.
No worries, we'll hold the fort. Moving on, and to be fair, this would be a question Nigel really likes, so we might have to come back to that one. Let's have a look on the YouTube, see what people have been asking us.
Whilst you find that, Luke, I'll add to what we just said about the academy, and Nigel alluded to there. We want to bring more attention to it next year. We're soon going to be announcing a way of how fans can become a bigger part of the academy and bigger part of the club. So I won't sow any more seeds than that, other than watch this space.
Yeah. One thing that I know people have been asking about, and I know we wanted to communicate on, was season cards, Danny. So I think it might be a good opportunity to offer an update in terms of numbers sold, and I know the process as well was something you wanted to talk about. Yeah,
so I think there's a couple of important messages here, Luke. 2,800, give or take, is the figure we're at the moment, which is simply staggering, especially in the environment that we're in at the moment. We obviously now have as much certainty as I think we're going to get, that we're going to start in early to mid-September, and probable that we're going to have a crowd back in October. So we've certainly seen a renewed effort from fans in the last few days since that was sort of announced by the government, and that looks like that's what's going to happen. And there's been a bit of a sort of a surge in the last few days on that. So the deadline will remain of the 31st of July. That is when the early bird window will end. So those that want to secure their place for next year, that's the deadline that we're going to work to. So we'll announce a bit more detail on that in the next sort of 12 to 24 hours. And I really want to just thank fans that are their continued patience when they're putting in their application for a season card. It's Lindsay and Lucy that are ploughing through as many calls as they possibly can in between doing the rest of their day job as well, and actually required them to work weekends. And I'm always for praising staff. I want to bring attention to those two that are working. I thought I put my mad hours in, but they're working literally every hour of night and day, weekends as well. Solely committed to getting round to as many fans as they possibly can. I know that they're saying that calling fans, unfortunately, many are not being able to answer. So we are getting round to you, and thanks for your continued patience, and we will get through those calls. If you've put in your request for your season card, your booking's been noticed, and we will call you as soon as we possibly can to take that payment. I know it's a rather convoluted process we're having to follow, but as we switch new ticketing system, unfortunately at the moment, that's the process that we're having to follow. And again, thanks to fans for that understanding.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Nigel, you're back with us now, and I know there was a question here that I know you probably want to give your view on, so I wanted to wait. And that's, has there been any progress on financial reform in the EFL? Is there any possibility of a support package from the government or the Premier League /FA? And if so, will it have any strings attached to it?
Okay, so Danny and I are kind of slightly frustrated because we expected to have a call scheduled for the early part of this week, but I think the EFL is still working through some significant issues. And Danny and I were talking only this morning. You think what they've got on their plate at the moment, finishing the season, planning for next year, potential suits by a number of clubs, including Stevenage in our league about relegation. You've got the Wigan situation. You've got the Sheffield Wednesday situation. And I'm sure, Danny, I've missed a few, right?
There's a few out there that perhaps aren't in the public, but yeah, there's a number of issues on their plates, that's for sure.
So I think they've certainly got a very full plate. I think we believe that there's a strong chance that the salary cap will go through in some form. I don't want to tempt fate, so that's good. I think in terms of a rescue package, there's been muted that there's something coming, but we don't know what it is. Rick Parry talked to the MPs in Westminster and basically talked about parachute payments and the fact that the parachute payments from the Premier League back to the Championship, if you halve that, it would be a big windfall to all the clubs down the pyramid. And I think this is an essential point. There's been a lot of articles about this. It isn't just about League One and League Two. The pyramid of 13 levels is what keeps football going and keeps it going very well in the UK. So we have to protect the whole pyramid. So I'm optimistic. I did expect, and we scheduled this call thinking we'd have some news. We haven't, but we expect to hear something in hopefully the next week. But I wouldn't hold my breath because I would have said that a week ago. Danny, any updates I've missed?
No, I think you've summed that up. It's a frustrating but understandable wait. And I think the reality is, we've said before, football must use this opportunity to reset itself. We've looked at every single cost base that we've got, tried to manipulate every revenue stream if it exists, and if not, find some new ones. And every football club's having to do the same, and so's the EFL is having to look at absolutely everything. But there's a lot of money in football. We know that. It's at the moment, it's not trickling down the level it needs to, so that football at this level, and as Nigel rightly said, the pyramid's below us, and we know full well the perils of that. At the moment, that's not trickling down anywhere near enough or anywhere near deep enough. Yeah,
but I think it's also worth adding the FA. So not the Premier League, the FA, which is the body that looks after football in the UK, they laid off 40-odd people and then slashed the open vacancies, which I think was another 40. So effectively 80 positions disappeared. So it's easy to say we're going to get money from above, but there's all kinds of challenges as well at that level. As international games aren't being played, the Euros didn't get played. I think Sky have been very accommodating with some of the challenges of the schedules and the playoffs and what have you. So I think Sky have really been a very good partner to all the levels of football.
Yeah. Ken, anything on that before we move on?
Unless I'm mistaken, we don't budget as if there's going to be a relief package. We budget that there's not going to be. So if there is, fantastic. If not, we'll just keep trucking along. It'll be all right. We'll make it work.
Yes, Ken. A question from Andrew Cornwall, and to be fair, a lot of people have asked this one, and it's what is the goal that's been set for next season for Leyton Orient on the field?
Let Ken go first.
That we finish the season. That's the number one goal. That we just finish the season. That's the first. Can we just finish the season? A third of the time that Nigel and I have owned the club, we haven't finished a season. So I'm not quite sure how that all works, right? I got 2 years in the National League and then I got one season that we didn't finish. So here's, we continue to build the club in such a way that we put ourselves into a position based on what our competitors or the other clubs, the other 23 clubs are doing. We will continue to put ourselves in a position to where we will be successful over the next 3 or 4 years. And that's what we're continuing to do. That strategy has not changed. I don't think it will change as long as Nigel is chairman. And that's what we're doing. So do we have specific targets? Actually, no, not yet, because we want to wait and see who is the opposition, and we don't know that yet. And, how does our squad look from a talent perspective, and how do we measure up? And then I think we will set goals based on our group overachieving because they've had a little bit more time in preseason. And they've maybe played a few more matches together than some of the other clubs. So that's how I would answer that question. It's not like at the beginning of the year, we say, okay, 8th or better or else. That's not how we do it. But, we will have specific goals. Ross will have specific goals. They'll all have very specific goals, but none of those have been decided just yet. Nigel?
So the way I'd answer that is we need to give ourselves the best chance to perform as well as we can this year. And we mentioned this earlier, that we come back to preseason training as early as anyone. We hope to have a very competitive preseason, which should get us ready. We think learned some lessons from 2 years ago. And I remember reading fans' comments about we didn't strengthen the squad enough. But Justin was very focused on keeping the team together and building on what we learned the previous year. I think we actually finished pretty well before we were shut down in March. And remember, going back to Kent's earlier comments about the transfer window, we brought in a first-class goalkeeper. Oos came in on loan. We've now got him permanently. We then brought in Danny Johnson, who demonstrated, that he is that poacher that we thought he was. So we feel we've strengthened there. I think one of the things that's going to be available to us is a lot of good loan players from the Premier League. And it was interesting watching, and I had to watch it on ESPN Plus, the playoffs for League Two and League One. It was interesting to me how well loan players did in those games. So I think that's a real opportunity that perhaps if we had to be critical of what we've done in the last few years, we haven't taken enough advantage of that. And it seems to me, unless Danny tells me I'm wrong, we're going to have 5 subs, which means that we will probably need a bigger squad for each game. That gives you more flexibility. So one of the things that we've done in the lockdown is really work on our relationships with clubs like Tottenham, Arsenal, West Ham, etc. So I feel we're in a good position. And Kent's right. We've set no goals but I think I've said publicly, I'd like to believe we can improve on last year, the season that's finished. And also, I'd like to believe that we could get close to challenging for the playoffs. And that's as far as I've gone. One thing I want to emphasize is, since we own the club, it has been interesting. The first year we had to throw the squad together on the 22nd of June to get ready for the pre-season. The second year we had a stable year and we got promotion. The third year was Justin's very sad passing and all the consequences of that. And now we've had COVID. So we've had 1 out of 4 summers that have been normal. The one summer that was normal and prepared, we did well. So that's why we as a board made the financial decision to let the squad go back earlier. Danny, probably if we'd kept them all furloughed, that would have been worth certainly over £10,000, I think. At least, by having them still stay on furlough. And that was the decision most clubs made. We're ambitious enough to think that if you work hard in pre-season, as Kent said earlier, you'll get your reward with success.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nigel. Looking at the questions you've had in, another one from Neil Irvine, and he's asked, are you able to share any further information on the potential new investors that have been referred to previously?
Good question. The answer is no, because we've deliberately not asked them for money. We've managed our finances pretty well, despite all the issues. And I want to compliment again Lindsay, who's taken over full-time day-to-day finances, and Simon Blake, who we brought in as a financial advisor, as we talked about at the AGM. He's been a breath of fresh air because he asks questions that sometimes we don't like having to answer, which is a good thing. So he really challenges us hard. So we intend to sit down with those people when we've got a budget, which we've actually said, because of the fact that the season keeps changing, our assumptions keep changing, we won't fix our budget until the end of July. We'll then work out what cash we need over the next 2 to 3 years. But we got one investor who sat through our board call last week, very enthusiastic. We got another 2 that are pretty enthusiastic. And there's another guy that actually visited the ground recently with Matt Porter. So the answer is we got several on the side, and there's another one that hasn't actually had a meeting with us. But as far as we're concerned, I think for the foreseeable future, you can see Kent and I as the face of the club, and other investors will come in. And one of the things that people often forget is when you bring in investors, you need to maintain what's called investor relations. And this morning, one of our investors who invested last year, I had a call that I have every 2 weeks with him. He loves where we are. He's absolutely besotted with Leyton Orient. And that's what we want to achieve, because, you know, this is a club, I think, on the up. We're building steadily. I'm very optimistic for the future. Things like the academy, I think we have to make a decision if and when at the right time. Do we change the pitch to assist pitch or something like that? Because I think we'll get a return on that. We can play more games at the stadium, etc., etc. So there's a lot of good things we're working on.
Thanks, Nigel. What I will quickly say now is, if you're watching on YouTube and you want to drop a comment in onto the comment box on the right-hand side, want to ask a question, then do so now, because we'll start wrapping up and start looking at the kind of final questions. So looking at what has come in, been asked. It's a bit of a broad question, but I think it's an interesting one from Bob Kaplan, saying, a few years ago, we were neck and neck with Brentford for promotion to the Championship. They're now pushing for promotion to the Premier League. What can we as a club learn from this?
Okay, I'm going to answer that very clearly. Do not bring in any.
Uh-oh, here you go. Here you go. Go, Nigel.
Well, but by the way, I'm a fan. I'm not just a chairman. I'm a fan. I mean, those times were so effing miserable. I'm determined it never happens again. So that's a quick answer. I'll let Kent be more rational.
Well, part of the challenge is that every club is on their own path. And so to say that Leyton Orient should be compared to one club or another, we've been compared to lots of different clubs just since we've, been the ownership of Leyton Orient. Some people were very concerned about our ability to get out of the National League. Some people were very concerned about this or that or all of that. The only thing I know to do is to try and help Leyton Orient become the best club that Leyton Orient can become. Is there a way for us to change what we do? Yeah. Improve what we do? Absolutely. Will we do that? Absolutely. Does that mean that we will progress to the Premier League as quickly as others may have done it in the past? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not caught up in where we end up. I'm enjoying the ride. I love this club. I love the ride that we're on. I love the passion that our fans, including our chairman, has for this club. I really appreciate the, season ticket holders and all of that. How we've done compared to Bournemouth, or how we've done compared to Tranmere, or how we've done compared to, any number of another. There's like 72 clubs we could be compared to. I don't know the answer to that. I don't have the history. Really, I don't care. I just enjoy Leyton Orient, and I hope that more than anything else, the fans and the members of this club are more proud of Leyton Orient today than they were yesterday, and I hope they'll be more proud of it tomorrow than they were today.
So going back, Luke.
Here he comes. He's not done yet.
This is the more rational answer.
No, it's not. It's not going to be that. Don't believe it. Here he comes.
2013, 14, when we nearly went up, we got to Wembley. We beat Brentford away 3-1. And I saw that game when we were shut down. So the question's appropriate. And I think we should give credit to Brentford, who built steadily. I think there are lessons about their analytical model for recruitment, which is, I think, really stellar. I think they had some good managers, Dean Smith being one. And they're now building a new stadium that when I'm allowed back into the UK, I watch the progress every time I come, and I see how it's progressed just down the road from Griffin Park. But Brentford have done a spectacular job. But I think we could have been there, and that's why I come back to my original answer. We were on the cusp of doing something really good, but it shows how important leadership is. If you have the wrong leader, and the way I look at it, not supportive of the people working in the organization, and we all know the history, you get bad results, and we have bad results. I think we're moving steadily in the right direction, as Kent has said a couple of times. And I'm not saying we're going to compare with Brentford. I agree with what Kent said, but we're going in the right direction.
Well, I think on that note, I think probably not going to find a more passionate response for a question tonight. So let's have any final points from anyone tonight. Kent, Danny, or Nigel?
Well, let me just say that I am super impressed that Nigel did not say "he who shall not be named's name." So I thought that was fantastic. That he got away with not putting money in the kitty. But again, we really appreciate Loft and all that they're doing during this time. We really appreciate the Supporters Club we know that those guys are all missing getting together and having a fine ale, beer, and we miss seeing them and being in the supporters club. We miss being in the stadium. We wish we could be there. We can't wait to get to come back and say hi to everybody, even if it is just an elbow bump. And we really do appreciate the season card holders and, the response that the club is getting from them. So we would encourage you to do what you can on behalf of the club, give on behalf of the club, buy on behalf of the club, do what you can on behalf of the club. But most of all, keep your family safe, keep yourself safe, and just enjoy this time as best you can.
So I'd add, I can't say much better than that. And thank you to everyone that Kent named. I should perhaps just say that I love Italians. It's just one person who caused a lot of issues. But no, I do.
What was his name again, Nigel? What was his name?
No, you won't. Kent.
Good try, like it.
I can't empty my pockets too much because later. But I want to say thank you to everyone and the group, Danny's leadership, Martin's leadership, and we'll keep communicating with you. And I think, Luke, our commitment to the fans should be we'll do another one of these very quickly because I think we're going to have news soon. I just don't know how soon because it's important for us to keep up to date and keep you up to date. So thank you to everyone and look forward to speaking to you all soon. Up the O's.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody.